Isn't that one of the biggest differences between Western and Asian culture, though? I feel like Asian culture in general is more of that community mentality, that group mentality. Right?
Yeah. Think about the masks stuff, right? Back in the US, right? You have all these people, or, not everybody, thankfully, but, a significant subsegment of the population just not wearing masks.
Well, what do you chop that up to? You think that's just like individualism? Like I'm my own person, don't tell me what to do kind of mentality? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this ethos, right, for us as Americans that's written into our, like Jefferson wrote it into our Declaration of Independence, right? The pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like these are like tenets of our culture that are written into our very DNA, and anything that would impinge upon our liberty, upon our individual pursuit of something called happiness, like you cannot impinge upon that. Like thou shalt not interfere with that, right? And here we are. I think not every culture historically has felt that way, has placed such a value on individual happiness, whatever that means, right? Or an individual's life or liberty, right? The concept is different. So like, I think for a lot of Americans, the fact that even though they can cerebrally understand why wearing a mask might be important to public health or something like that, it is me as an individual, as a person, willingly accepting a limitation, right? And that feels anathema to a lot of people. That feels like they prickle against that, like, no, that's not right, right? George should not have to sacrifice anything, right? For somebody else.
Yeah.
They should say, take care of them, and I take care of me. So if you get sick, you get sick. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing a mask. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. But do you feel like it gets taken too far sometimes, or it gets used as like kind of this atomic bomb in terms of any sort of like stopping any sort of discussion in its tracks?
Totally.
Right? Like my freedoms, my personal liberties, boom. And once you say those words, it's like, oh, like hands up in the air.
Yeah.
Can't talk any further. There's nothing else like you can do.
Yeah.
Because once you bring up those terms about freedom and liberty, all of a sudden it's like, if you're like arguing or having a debate about these things, if you're debating on the other side of that, it's all of a sudden then you're put in this, you're framed in this as like you're against freedom, you're against liberty, you're against these things. And then all of a sudden it just stops any discussion in its tracks.
Oh, you're so right. I totally agree with you. It's like these, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a card that you pull, right? And as soon as you pull that card, it stops any sort of intellectual discourse.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just not, I think COVID is bringing to light the fact that the world is operating on a whole different level, right? We have this virus. It's literally in the air. It spreads like wildfire. Yeah, it may have started here in China, in Wuhan, but come on, we live in the 21st century, right? Nothing is so boundary to one place, right? It's gonna spread. Right, no matter how much and it's not because, and I do have issue perhaps with some of China's early efforts, right, and in terms of the way that the Chinese health authorities chose, for example, to silence some of the voices of the initial medical staff that found that this was a thing back in Wuhan, right, and then there's a lot of fear, but I think that after that, China's response to this has largely been appropriate. And granted, like I think China's in a unique space, right? We have a very particular type of governance here. We have a particular type of society. But I think it's really interesting because Chinese people in general have been much more accepting of the limitations. And part of that has been because they have to, right? Like I remember being interviewed by the BBC once about, hey, like how did you guys in China move so quickly to online education and working from home? And I'm like, well, part of the reason is because you showed up to work one day and there's a padlock on the front door. So you just got to suck it up and do it. There's no like conversation, quote unquote, about how we're going to do this. It's like you do it or you don't have a job. So let me know, right? And part of it's that. But the other part, I think, too, is that there's much more of an understanding that, hey, we're all going to have to do this, right? If we wish to come out of this, like, pandemic, right? We're all going to have to bite the bullet a little bit and suck it up.
Yeah.
And I think there's something in the American ethos, or culture, that we bristle against that. We don't think that's right, that we as an individual have to suck it up. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then, I mean, I think they always, Americans in general, I don't know, maybe they frame things in terms of like a slippery slope. Like,
Yeah.
if we, like, if we kind of give this ground, even though it's like just a little bit,
Yeah.
what's going to happen later?
You're
What is
right.
that going to lead to? And then what is that going to lead to?
First the mask, then the
then
whatever.
this, and then that,
Yeah.
So they start hypothesizing or thinking about all these like worst case scenarios
Yeah.
instead of addressing the issues one matter at a time.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, well, what do we need to do right now? What's immediate and what makes sense?
Yeah.
Instead, they go on to like worst case scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And these abstract ideas of like
Slippery slopes.
Yeah, slippery
Yeah.
slopes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that's sort of like the kind of fear that takes hold, right? Instead of going, hey, this is a virus. We know how viruses operate. We know how they spread. And we know, it's not new that wearing masks contain the spread of viral epidemics. That's not new at all, right? Spanish flu, for example, but not just Spanish flu, SARS. Like part of the reason why I think masks took on here in China is because we went through SARS and there's masks were a thing already.
Yeah.
Masks were a thing because of the pollution. Like
Well, even before COVID, people were wearing masks. Like,
the air's
some people,
bad.
were wearing masks already.
Yeah, I spent 3 years, me and my family, in Beijing, right, where we wore a mask like most days.
Yeah, it's like bringing an umbrella if you think it's going to rain.
Exactly, exactly. And so we didn't see it as so much of an impingement upon individual liberty. We saw it only as, well, it's up to you whether or not you want to breathe something in
Yeah.
that you don't want to,